hello again. Welcome back, my fascinating Renaissance friends. Welcome to episode 191. Last episode, I said we will leave New Jersey, and New York, and the snowstorm, and 12 inches plus of snow, and negative 15, Celsius wind chill factor, and then go to sunny California. Before that, I would really like to take this episode as some kind of a respite and some kind of a commentary, on the season of winter. Okay, so three things I would like to reflect on, and one of which is I've shared with you already in the episode on lessons from philosophy. How we can use lessons in philosophy to really look at life and carve for ourselves, the good life. And it's one from one of my favorite French philosopher. His name is Albert Camus. All right, those of you who have been following, I'm sure you've heard this. Okay, let me say it here. In the midst of winter, I find there lies within me my invincible summer. Okay, so I love that so much. Let me repeat. In the midst of winter, I find there lies within me an invincible summer. Okay, so I have two seasons right there in the midst of winter. And then invincible summer. Invincible is something, the word, if you look at the dictionary, it means something that cannot be broken. Something that cannot be broken. Something that is so strong that, it will let you stand. Something like that. Okay. Why? Because, winter as a season, it's not just it's very cold and frozen. It is also dark and kind of lonely. You know, there's no color. All you see out there, is white. It's covered with white. With white snow, and the trees are bare. There's no color, and animals would hibernate. They would just sleep because they could not hunt for food. Things like that. So it's a metaphor for an age, for people. Okay, so it's in the midst of winter. So which means it could also be a metaphor for desperation, for hopelessness, for not seeing any light, for darkness, for heavy burden. That's a metaphor in that saying. There, I find their life within me an invincible summer, meaning meaning even if the going gets rough and you cannot see beyond the snow and the darkness, there will always be a silver lining. So that's a metaphor of winter. So season of life, so winter, so it's after autumn, it's after fall. So what is the meaning of the winter of life? There's no more activity. I mean, you slow down because the body cannot take on, things like that. And there is also the season of marriage, seasons of marriage. And according to Gary Chapman, the author, every marriage would have its season. Of course, when you meet the first time, there's excitement, there's passion. The summer, okay, the spring, when you first meet each other, something new, budding romance and things like the blossoming. And then, if you're still together, then there's passion. There is still excitement, building a relationship. And then when it stabilizes, then you go into autumn, wherein, it's stable, but it may not be as passionate and things like that. And there's winter. Now, for most people, he wrote in the book, if they reach the winter of life, they think it's the end of their marriage. No more spark. So they separate. Maybe love has died. Love has died. We are no longer attracted to each other. We are no longer excited, to see each other. We live in separate bedrooms. That kind of thing. There's no more. And he said, no, no, you just write it off because that's part of the season. And then if you really want your marriage to last, then you just have to work on it and wait until spring when new life will be breathed in. Then you will have summer again. And things like that. So if we're talking about reflections and lessons, and the chilling out part there that I talked to you 2 episodes, because we couldn't go out of New Jersey, and we couldn't we barely made it, to Broadway, and the birthday dinner in the restaurant because of such a heavy snowfall in New York. And this is what I thought about. This is what I remember. We will always, because the rhythm of life, you're not always high up there. There will be times that you will feel very low. You're not always in the summer. There will be days that, you feel as if, is this all there is to it? I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel here. But, this too shall pass. Meaning, after the winter, after the snow, there's spring. After spring, there's summer. After summer, there's fall. Then winter again. And then spring. So we'll just have to go with the flow and not give up on our marriage, not give up on life, not give up on work, because we may be undergoing the winter season. Okay? So, even if we were not able to go to places simply because it's just too cold, in fact, my husband's knees, somehow suffered a bit. And, he just told me when we returned to the Philippines. And now in the Philippines right now, 40, 40 degrees Celsius. Whoa, that's hot. Okay. And he just said, I don't mind, perspiring. We have the aircon. I do not mind, but I really mind a lot, winter. So are we coming back to the US winter? I said, no way. It was a winter wonderland until it isn't. Okay? Next time we visit, it will always be fall. Always fall. Because autumn is the best season in the natural world. And so is in our autumn of life. Okay? So don't forget to like and subscribe so we continue with with sun and sand in sunny California in next episode. Until then, my friends, goodbye.